introduction to one of my favorite people on earth, Mr. Stephen Oliver, who is with the Advisor Marketing Podcast. Now, Stephen is a true maverick, and I mean that in every sense of the word. Not only in our business, but I have to tell you, his clients universally love him, and they grow at rates that they wouldn't believe it's possible. Now, on this podcast, in each episode, Stephen is joined by various members of his team or special guests to share insider secrets to rapid growth and high net profits in your financial advisory practice. So I just want you to know you're in for a wild ride, new information, and a lot of exciting new future because of Stephen Oliver.
Hi there. By now, you know who I am and everybody, but I'll do the quick introduction, just in case. I'm Stephen Oliver, director of the program here, and have been working with practice and business owners like you for well over 35 years. And, not only have the degree and the background in finance and economics and one thing or another, but 35 years of in the trench experience in sales and marketing and so forth. Here with me, we have Jeff Smith, who has been a business owner, entrepreneur, directed a chain of retail locations, and been a consultant and coach to small businesses and small practice owners and big practice owners for probably about the same length of time, Jeff, but at least for 20 years. As well as the distinction of being the world light heavyweight kickboxing champion. Back in the day, among other things. And then we have Mindy Godfrey, who has an extensive background in working with authors in the publishing industry, running small group and large group meetings. And of course, Jeff and I, we've done, what have we done, Jeff, now? Well over probably 500 small business meetings and, up to maybe 2,000 people. Mindy, I think you said your biggest one is 40,000 people as far as event management, but you've been very heavily involved in event promotion, marketing, worked with authors, worked in the Christian space, the event space as well, and a lot of experiences, I said already, with publishing. And Bob, you've been working with small business and practice owners for 20 years now. I think as my right-hand man for about 16 of those?
17, yes, sir. It's been a long time.
An awful long time. I don't know how many thousands of people you've talked to, but what we wanted to do is just get started, as your first step on really getting with the program here. And I want to start with a principle, and I'm going to butcher the attribution, but there's a great principle in running your business on a regular basis. And it's, if you look around everybody, if you don't know what else to do otherwise, look around everybody in your business and don't do what they're doing, do the opposite. What most people do, and especially new financial advisors, wealth managers, but you're obviously more established, but really what they do is they look around everybody else in the industry and say, well, that's what they're doing, that must be what I should be doing. And really all breakthroughs come from not doing that. Most breakthroughs in any industry, in any niche, come from outside the niche. I mean, it's the great story of Ray Kroc is sitting in his office building, looking at a drive-through window at a bank and say, why couldn't we sell burgers that way? It's taking something from outside your business and bringing it inside your business. But of any business that I've worked with, any industry I've worked with, I'm not sure I've seen one that hasn't changed since 1955 as badly and as dramatically as financial advisors. And again, the threat is not only other people who you might consider competitors, but of course it's robo-advisors and everything else. So we've got to really up our game and change our game. So let's start with this. Is most everybody we talk to start with, well, most of my new clients come from referrals. And that's great. We all love referrals. Referrals come pre-qualified to some extent, and they have been prepped a little bit on you. But our first question is always, well, great. Tell us about all of the referral systems that you have in place to generate referrals. Most often that gets a blank stare. Is that a fair statement to say, Bob?
That's exactly right. Yes, sir.
Yeah, oftentimes it's, well, what do you mean by a referral system? One of our clients, Peter Harnish, he's a top 1/10 to 1%er at Northwest Mutual. I was having this conversation with him. I said, well, one of the best ways to get referrals is to have an event, have a client event. They can bring their friends. That way the client doesn't feel like they have to pitch your thing. They can just have something that they can invite their friends to, and then you get a chance to get some interaction, exposure, a chance to make an appointment, give them some literature and so forth. And he said, oh, yeah, that's great. I did that. And I said, oh, great. Tell me about it. He said, well, I have a friend who has an art gallery, and we did a client appreciation event, and they could bring their friends. We had great results. I said, great. How many times a year do you do that? So, well, we did it like 8 years ago. I said, well, how many of those did you do? Well, we did one of them. So you're telling me it worked so well, you never
did it again.
Yeah. Well, that was a lot of hard work. Well, I got to tell you something about events is, take one type of event that Jeff and I have done. We've done 200 of them now. Well, the first one was massive amounts of work. But after that, you've got a checklist. You've got the action plan. You've got the ability to delegate it all. You know what the marketing is going to be. You know what the methodology is going to be. Your timeline. So at this point, I have to have the facility. At this point, I have to have audio visual. And in most cases, the presentation, the content is going to be the same. Not that big a deal. But that's just one example. Another example, though, is, I'll talk to advisors and I'll say, well, how often do you meet with your clients? How often do you contact your clients? And, they'll say, well, we do an annual review or we do a quarterly review, one thing or another. But see, if your client is out on the golf course or they're playing tennis or they're out to dinner with their friends and some topic that would be relevant comes up, I guarantee you're not top of mind awareness for them, right? In order to get referrals, you have to be that top of mind awareness that they think, oh, I got a guy who can handle that. I got a woman who would do a great job with that. And one way we accomplish that is the advisor has a book or they have a quarterly new book that comes out. And I don't mean it has to be, a 700-page dissertation that you spend 1,000,000 years doing. Oftentimes it's a 70-page on one topic. That's easy to create. We can do a recording and do an interview, transcribe it, and then send it off to somebody on Fiverr to clean it up. But if they have your book and they're, sitting down at dinner saying, well, I'm really trying to figure out what to do with my 16-year-olds going off to college and trying to figure out how to balance that. Well, if you had the book on the subject, they say, hey, the gentleman I work with wrote a book on the subject. Let me give you the book. And see, that's a pass along where number one, you're top of mind, but two, they have a pass along. So from building a Parthenon, which you're going to hear us say a lot, a Parthenon of marketing activities, we kind of start with the mini Parthenon, if you will, of 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 things to do to generate referrals, right? So one of the things I like to do is have at least 24 contacts a year of something they're getting physically in the mail. Right now, it could have been a Halloween card, a Thanksgiving card, Christmas. Everybody has Christmas cards, but it could be a New Year's card. In fact, I have behind me here some fake handwritten cards that are really cool that is automated and can go out to everybody. But it's one thing Bob, you have it there.
Yeah. It really looks well handwritten. I mean, it.
Yeah. See, that's a fake handwritten card. In fact, you probably got one from me. I didn't sit down and write it out. We have
the cover of it, the front of it, Bob?
Yeah, real quick.
Yeah. So that's one example. But but see, what happens is if they're getting cards from you, let's say they're getting a monthly newsletter, which is another recommendation. Newsletters physically get passed along. Because most of the people we talk to, they say, oh, yeah, I communicate with my clients a lot. And I say, well, what do you do? Well, I send them an email every month or I send them an email every week. Well, I got to tell you, email is dying a slow and painful death. One is you don't have top of mind awareness when it got thrown in to an inbox with 200 other people. So it's one of those things that, use email. It's free. It's easy, but it's certainly not creating top of mind awareness. Mindy, what would you add to that?
Oh, totally. I mean, I think about my own email inbox and, there's things that I have opted in in for because they're my favorite stores I want to shop with. But you get so many emails a day that most of them I just click out of the way unless there's something I'm really specifically looking for at that time. And so I don't really think about them. And I think that's really true that when email's the only thing that you're relying on, you're definitely going to miss some things. I think, one of the advantages of the handwritten card and the direct, any kind of direct mail is you have something tangible right there in front of you that is going to sit on the desk or be out and be seen as a physical reminder.
And to emphasize what you said, may have been 18 months ago or so, but the Wall Street Journal had a pretty good article on major retailers, Nordstrom, Macy's. I mean, people who are smart, have smart marketers at the helm. And they were talking about the email communication they were doing with their customers. Well, the range of frequency of how often, for instance, Nordstrom was emailing, or Neiman Marcus was emailing their customers, was a low end of 380, and a high end of 790 times a year. In other words, between once and 2 or 3 times a day. And all you have to do is be on Amazon's list, be on Groupon's list, be on Nordstrom's list, be on Neiman Marcus list, etc. And they're using email, they're presumably using it effectively, but they're in the inbox 2 or 3 times a day. I mean, that's the level of frequency. So if you send something out, and we're going to suffer from having the sun move over and turning me into a checkerboard here. Maybe I'll move over a little bit as we go.
Beautiful.
Yeah, but again, email, it's good if you're sending off, but you don't need those. You don't need a big elaborate HTML beautiful thing. It's sending off some personal notes every day. I mean, there's always something going on in the market. There's something going on politically. There's something going on medically. Is putting your thoughts out on a regular basis and being aware of compliance and so forth. But just staying in front of them, and then giving them tools that they could share and pass along to their friends is a great top of mind awareness. But it's a great referral tool. Jeff, what would you add to that?
Well, I like, nowadays I like text messaging, and when you forward, if you get something that has some value to it, the first thing you think of is I want to forward that to a couple of my friends. I want them to see that. And so those little bits of information that you can give, the contact that you make, I like the personal contact that you make with them too, because when you're congratulating them on, it could be their child had graduated from high school or college or something like that, or if they're sick and you're sending them a get well something. So any kind of personal contact that you can make with them, any opportunity you have to congratulate them or condolences for them, if there's a death in the family or an illness in the family. I mean, they take that really, really personal and go, wow, this person really cares about me. They're not just contacting me when they want my business, but they're there for me on a regular basis to congratulate for this or that. So it's developing, and I find that the best thing that keeps your client the longest is when you can develop that rapport. And that kind of personal rapport like that goes beyond the business, because, business contacts you can lose, but personal contact relationships last much longer.
Yeah. And I think Mindy had brought up how important the other generations are for following up. And that, just what you said, Jeff, is exactly right. That's what helps you build that relationship.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And maybe on the another topic when it comes to just referrals is, there's always a debate in every industry and every group about providing compensation and giving somebody a bribe or giving somebody a reward. And in our industry, as we know, you have to deal with compliance and, whether you can get away with that or not, and one thing or another. Sometimes you're fine. It's like the classic idea of having the CPA send you their clients over and so forth. But, if you don't have a problem with that, with your company and your situation, here's something that I think is a much more powerful idea. What we find is it's one thing to broadcast out. Well, for every new client you send me, I'm going to, give you a certificate to Morton's. Maybe that's a dated reference. Did they shut all of them down? I don't know. I'm going to give you a certificate to your favorite steakhouse or one thing or another. See, that's fine as far as it goes. But I can tell you what, no one ever sincerely referred their friend who has, $10 million from the sale of his recent business to you as a financial advisor, somebody they have a relationship with enough to make a difference because they're going to get a certificate to a steakhouse. It's just not something that happens. It's about building trust, having top of mind awareness, have a pass along or an event that they can do. But I'll tell you the flip side of it is most of your clients will never even send you one referral on their own. I mean, you can sit down and we'll talk about how to do this. You can sit down with the script and, ask them who they know in one thing or another and go through their company and go through their associates. However, the one that sends you a really good client, that's the one that oftentimes will end up with 5 or 10 or 15. And where you want to be is you want to be and have a high level of gratitude and recognition. So when they send you the first referral, that's when you send them a certificate to their favorite restaurant, for instance. I remember, at one time I was buying a bunch of TV advertising, and this TV station, the CBS affiliate, I think it was trying to show me great gratitude. So at my office, I walk in one day, and there's a Denver Broncos golf bag. Well, I don't know how much they spent on it. Jeff, you may know, but I'm guessing it was a $600, $700, $800, all leather, one thing or another, in orange and blue. And they missed the mark so bad because I'm as apathetic as any human being on the planet about football. Number one. Number two, I don't golf. And it just proved to them that they had no idea, what I would appreciate, what I wouldn't appreciate. And go back to what you just said, Jeff, is knowing your client and knowing what they would appreciate, or, call the wife or husband and say, what is Mary's favorite spa? What's her favorite restaurant? What's her favorite, vacation destination? What's something that she really loves? And then personalize it. Well, that goes so much further than just having some random thing that you send. But the takeaway there is get really good at personal notes, recognition and knowledge of who your clients are. And then when they take the action that you're looking for, get really good at recognition. Get really good at, even if it's, you had a client event like at the art gallery, like we were talking about, they brought their friend along. Well, recognize that. Send them a certificate, or again, if you have a compliance issue, send them a personal note and a personal phone call, and recognize and really make a big deal out of that, because that's an important consideration. Mindy, what would you add to that?
Yeah, I think just that whole thing of really knowing your client and showing appreciation is just such a big deal, because that's it just so doesn't happen. It's uncommon, unfortunately, in our culture today. That's just really an uncommon thing to have happen. So when it does, it really does stand out and makes a difference. And it's one of those things that in the long run, there's thousands of financial advisors, but when you've taken these extra steps and that client feels like you know them, and not only do you know them, you appreciate them, that's going to be a loyal client. That's not going to be one that's going to be looking around at who else can do this for me. And they won't see you as interchangeable.
Yeah,
I learned that a long time ago, and it's probably even more than 30 years ago. I bought my first Mercedes, and when I bought the Mercedes, and they did a nice job on it, and then all of a sudden I get a bottle of champagne and a dozen roses and chocolates for my wife, and it was Mr. and Mrs. Smith, thank you for your business. It was just an appreciation letter with flowers and chocolates and a bottle of champagne. And I was so shocked because I had bought a lot of cars. That was the first Mercedes that I had gotten. But I tell you, I ended up buying 5 more Mercedes from that place and referred people to them. And when I referred them, just like you said about the steakhouse thing, I got a appreciation letter from them. And with it was a dinner for me and my wife at one of the best steakhouses or restaurants in town. And once I developed that rapport with them like that, every time I did it, and my birthday, I would get a card, and I would have other unsolicited things that they would be sending me that kept that contact, that made me want to refer them to somebody. Because, anytime you get a car or you're in a new venture, a business or something, you want to share that success that you had with it, or how good experience it was with your friends. So that's a good opportunity to do something like that.
Yeah, it's not that hard to really get to know your client. I mean, there's so much availability out there today. So,
yeah, and no, that's fine. We have all these extensive CRM systems, and we have all these databases and so forth. And most of them, frankly, are worthless from the standpoint of, dating myself, but the old programming thing was GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. Well, if you're not.
It's Lee Milt here, and I'm delighted to interrupt you today and let you know that I've been working with Stephen Oliver for 10 or 15 years now. He's a great guy. I love all the research that he does. And I just wanted to let you know that if you're enjoying the content on this podcast, then you really want to make time to visit advisorwealthmastery.com. And why should you do that? Well, because you're going to receive 2 of his great books, and actually one of mine called Success is an Inside Job. You'll also get a lot of absolutely free material on growing your practice through effective marketing. So again, take the time to go to advisorwealthmastery.com.
Really data mining, asking questions, really learning more and more about your clients and recording that. And keeping track of it and looking at those notes when you talk to them again, whether it's one of these or whether it's in the database, you're really missing an opportunity to be on top of it. Going back to what you said, a great book, by the way, is Joe Girard, and he wrote a series of books, but he had the Guinness Book of World Record for selling the most cars. I think it was Chevrolet's, but one of the things that he did is he talked about the Joe Girard rule of 300, I think. And that was the number of people who would at least come to somebody's funeral or get an invitation to their wedding. But one of the things he did is he made sure anyone he had ever come in contact with, especially anybody he sold a car, they got a card from Joe every month, right? I mean, you think about most things, you buy a car from somebody and maybe you get a thank you note early on, but they don't stay in touch. With Gerard, he was staying in touch every month forever, right? So if you bought a car from him 10 years ago, you were still getting a birthday card, and you were getting an Easter card, and you were getting a Mother's Day card, and a July 4th card, and a Thanksgiving card, and a Halloween card. And again, I don't mean an email. Of course, this predates email, but you want to have that constant and communication, to be on top of mind awareness. And by the way, the other, I'll tell you what, 2 companies that are really good at that, Jeff, to go back to your story, is Porsche and Harley. Harley, as we both know, because I've got your Harley in my garage, and you've got another Harley. But when you go buy a Harley, last time I did, they sent me the picture of a plaque with the Harley and welcome, and I got the welcome package to the Hog organization. I was now a Hog member, the Harley Owners Group, and so I got my first pin, and then my annual pins, and all this crap. I forget what else with Porsche. I got 911 turbo. I get like a paperweight of the new turbo engine. I got a mailing with a German street sign. Dating myself again a little bit, when the Cayenne came out, every 911 owner got this big package with a video and an invitation to come. But it's stuff like that where it really keeps clients engaged and aware and on top of it. And like you said with the Mercedes, a new client, they want to prove to their friends how smart they are. Hey, I met this guy and he's got me all set up and you should talk to him. They love to do that. But if you don't stay, on top of it, it doesn't happen.
And another company that does that same thing was Ford, which kind of to me was, the opposite end of a Mercedes almost. But, I bought one of the Cobra, Mustangs from them years ago. And on a monthly basis, and I kept buying those cars for 20 years or so or longer. And every month they were sending me, I had one of those folding chairs with the Ford Motor Company on it, an umbrella with this. I mean, they were sending those little things like you were saying, Porsches, and just doing that with your clients on a regular basis, even if it's not monthly for that, but to send them a little something, an umbrella for the rain and these, chairs for watching your kids' sports games and things like that. It's those little things like that that you're sending them that makes them think that you're not only remembering them, but now they're going to remember you. And that's how you're going to get a referral.
More importantly, that you care.
Yeah.
Developing that rapport is the whole key.
Yeah. God.
You can't get away from that sun, can you?
No. I normally would be down in my office, but my Mac Pro and my desktop imploded, so it's in service. So I'm up here on my.
Okay, I'm not going to complain about the sun because usually when I'm coming out there, we got snow this time of the year.
Oh no, it's 75 and sunny.
Yeah, I know. That's Colorado. Has more sunny days than California.
More sunny days than Miami. But anyway, so let's do one or two more things on referrals. Though and I think I stole this from Tom Hopkins years ago. Is called isolate faces, right? See, what most of us do, even when you're just sitting face to face with a client, if you remember, and that's again another thing is, Peter Drucker said the purpose of any business is to create and keep a client, right? Or to create and keep a customer. And when you're in any interaction, you should be, well, my mission here is to create a new client and to keep the ones that I have. So what is it that I can do in each interaction to work on both things? But it's called isolate faces. And what isolate faces is, if I say to you, hey, who do you know that would be great at whatever? Who do you know who would love to buy a Mustang? Who do you know who would, really need a, better planning on their investment portfolio? Who do you know that, may be underprotected on their, disability, life, whatever it might be? Well, most people kind of draw a blank. I mean, they haven't sat down and thought of their circle of friends, their circle of influence, of who's what do they need, and so forth. I mean, that's your job. That's not their job. On the other hand, if you sit down and say, Joe, I know you work at XYZ Corporation, and as a CFO there, who else in the C-suite executives might really benefit from having this conversation and having an ability to really organize and think about a 10, 15, 20-year horizon rather than what's happening this quarter in the company? Well, now I've isolated it down to who else at your company at your level C-suite might also have some value to that. And I help them really think into, a group, in this case, probably of 5 or 6 other people, of what, me and Bill were talking about that the other day. I might want to have you talk to Bill. Okay, great. And Joe, I know you mentioned that you go to XYZ Country Club and you play there once a week. Who do you know at the country club that maybe you golf with, or that you there at the country club, who might also benefit from? You see what I'm saying? So I start with social organizations, other activities, who at work, who among your family, who do you know, among your immediate relatives. I'm sorry, I don't know. You have siblings, your wife has siblings. Who else is in a situation where this might be inappropriate? But if you don't do that, oftentimes we just say, hey, who do you know?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. They draw a blank. But you start to isolate it, then they can really focus in on who's going to be a good fit, who might be a good name. And the other thing, of course, the obvious stupidity is, oh, great, would you tell them about them? Tell them about me. Here's my card. Yeah, Bob is laughing on that one. The next follow-up, of course, is you want name, address, phone number, email address. You want to be respectful and know that you're not going to, hound all their friends.
Or more importantly, have them text your contact number over to their friend.
Yeah. Here, let me share my contact record. Would you mind sharing that with Bob, Bill, Sue? And if you had a series of books, maybe you could pass along the book. Here's a report that they might find valuable, something to hand to them that they can pass along would be useful as well. Jeff, you've probably done 10,000 of these. What would you add to that to make sure you're effective?
Well, what I like, sometimes sending a book or something that pertains to whatever their interest might be. It could be their retirement. It could be their child's, say they've got younger kids, so they're thinking about planning for their education, different things. So that's why you said have books available, and not big, big thick books, but things that just cover the basics of it, that you can forward to them and they can send, or you can send with the download. Nowadays you don't even have to have the hard copy. You can download it and they can get it right on their computer as a text message or an email, and download that information. And all their friend is saying, I thought you could use this, contact Bill if this interests you. And it's just having that kind of contact information. Sometimes just reading the book and then having that ability to contact you to get more information about it is very beneficial. So now they feel like they're not imposing on their friends, but they're helping their friends because they have common interest. And when you're trying to find that level of friends, business associates, maybe church associates, and social activities, country clubs, sports activities, kids activities. There's so many, your web keeps going bigger and bigger, that you actually have so many more contacts, most people, because right off the top, they always say the same thing. Well, I can't think of anybody offhand. And then you start saying, well, what about your closest friends? How many of those? And then you work out relatives, and then you just go down your list of those kind of things. And now all of a sudden they're thinking of a lot more people that they can share with you.
And if I could jump in real quick, what you said was so important on helping their friends, and any of your approaches should be on how you can help them. And I think that was important when you said that, Jeff.
Yeah. And how can this benefit them? And this would be very beneficial if they read this to give them some insight into what they should be thinking about and planning for retirement, there's so many different things that we can touch on.
Yeah. Well, and Bob, you made a great point, is anytime you're talking about what is valuable to you, you get deaf ears. When you're talking about what's valuable to them, they're listening. When you're talking to them about how they can share something valuable with their friends, their associates, their loved ones, people that they love and cherish in their life, now they're listening. And it's where the incentivizing somebody to bird dog is much less effective than showing them how you can create value and then being appreciative after the fact. Not that there's not a time and place for both.
I just think that what you said, that unsolicited, when they referred somebody and then then you send them something for appreciation because they weren't expecting it. And that's always, I find, the most rewarding for them. And it's going to be the most rewarding for you for getting future referrals too.
Absolutely. And we're going to have to, bring this one to a close. And I mean, our only topic really has been a few ideas for referrals. But maybe kind of working backwards. I'm probably going to skip a few. But one element is make sure you have the isolate faces script down for yourself and all your staff. And by the way, for somebody who has 5, 10, 15 people on your staff, they should all be trained in every conversation they're having with a client to focus on create and keep a client, not just the perfunctory of I need your signature on this, and by the way, I needed the ACH information. The second thing we talked about is in order for them to pass along information about you, you have to be top of mind awareness. And we're going to talk separately about client communication, client engagement and so forth. But you've got to be top of mind awareness. So if you meet with them once a year or once a quarter and then send them a few emails in between, that's not top of mind awareness. But having the books that they can pass along, having the reports, having the personalized, congratulations on the new baby or the new grandbaby, happy birthday, as well as the natural happy Halloween, happy Thanksgiving type of communications, as well as a regular newsletter. Those are ways that you stay top of mind awareness constantly and continually. One of the most effective ways to generate referral is client events, client appreciation events. We didn't even get into online, but you can do that with Zoom webinars, Zoom meetings. Obviously, you can do that with things like we mentioned, the art gallery or the dinner out or the congratulatory dinner at the end of the year. Something else we were talking about is, of course, you have to ask, and that comes back to the isolate faces, but it's having events, it's having pass-alongs, it's having regular client communication for top of mind awareness, it's having that isolate faces on a regular basis. And guys, what did I miss of reviewing our partial?
I like the little gifts that come that say compliments of, and then has your company name on it. And, whether it's a pin set that sits on their desk or a clock that sits on their desk or an umbrella they might use when they're playing golf, anything that ties in your company name that people can see that name and then they can go, oh, wow, where did you get that? Or something that is unique and unusual too is important.
Yeah, and you had mentioned the digital pass-alongs. Mindy, do you have one of our little USB cards handy?
I do.
Yeah, I mean, that's an example of new tech digital. In fact, hold up the whole package, and most of the people on the meeting probably have seen this. But that's one of the packages we use for our program. Yeah, the key and the little USB, and then the handwritten note. I mean, these are all things that in our case it's automated, but the USB thing is a pass along, and you can put an incredible amount of digital material on that. And Jeff, you mentioned you can send an email or a text and so forth. We always default to physical, text, email, and sometimes, and even physical, we'll send a package that has the same thing on DVD, on CD, and on thumb drive. And if you're, sending it to somebody who's 65, they may watch the DVD, and if you're sending it to somebody who's 35, they may plug in the thumb drive into their computer, or they may want to pull the text message. The advantage always of physical is it's stuff that piles up on their desk. The disadvantage of digital text message, email, etc., is they look at it once and it's gone. And it's never to be retrieved again.
I like the little book too. A little written material that matches what's on the video or what's on the audio, because some people do like to sit down and read and not have to plug in something electronic or electric or be in their car to put it. But having all of those different options come into play, that it covers everybody.
Yeah, we have a big package, as you know, that has a full color brochure of like 32 pages, I think. And then it's got a CD, it's got a DVD, and it's got a thumb drive. And people will say, well, people aren't going to look at all of those. No, but if I get them to look at one of them, or if I get them to look at two of them, I'm happy.
And they're all the same. They're all pretty much say the same thing. It's just the different way that's going to reach them.
Yeah, plus we'll text message the same material, we'll email the same material, everything else. But anyway, on that note, don't get overwhelmed. We can easily walk you through how to create the material. We have outsourced vendors that can do all this stuff for you as well. But the starting point is if you're going to generate a lot of clients from referrals, you want to have a Parthenon, multiple pillars of referral systems that you then systematize, automate to the greatest extent possible, create the scripts for you and for your staff to replicate over and over and over again, and make sure it's a consistent process. And to leave you with one note is, one of the marketing gurus that I've worked with extensively, a good friend of mine, Dan Kennedy, he calls all industries that most people, end up with marketing incest. So everyone looks at, as a financial advisor, looks at what all the other financial advisors are doing, and then everybody does it in the industry, and therefore all new people look around at what everybody else is doing, and they do the same thing. And very quickly, again, this is as bad as I've ever seen as far as a niche, but sooner or later everybody looks alike. I joke about the picture of the guy in the JCPenney suit sitting behind an oak desk with a bunch of plaques in the background with alphabet soup beside his name of his CFA, CFP, all of that kind of crap. And instead of distinguishing themselves, they become no different than anybody else, and that's the last position you want. On that note, we'll call it a day.
Just say one last thing, Master Oliver, that I think that's very important for everybody is that you've got to build your client base. And to build that client base is the longer you keep them, the more valuable they're going to become. But, if I'm getting a new client, but I'm losing a client, I end up staying in the same spot. So, you're either green and growing or you're ripe and rotting. So always keep track of that client base. Is your client base increasing every month, or is it decreasing, or is it flatlining? And you got to be green and growing.
Yeah, and something on that note, as we keep adding on, but I just went through the client base of one of my clients, and he probably has $10 million sitting in the list of the unutilized past prospects and of current clients that he just really hasn't expanded. David Ogilvy, who was well-known advertising genius from the 60s, he called it the moving parade of humanity. What he meant by that is that people's life situation, their mindset, their needs, their desires, their wants are constantly changing. And just because you sat down and dealt with their needs 5 years ago and knew their life situation at the time doesn't mean you've expanded and improved upon it from there. But that's a topic for another day. On that note, thank you, everybody, and we'll go from there.